Now I'm going to go over some of the homework problems with you. Essentially what I'll do is the first 1, 2, maybe 3 exercises that I've assigned you to show you the process that you can use to get the correct answer. I'll be using my wonderful little homemade whiteboard here to do the problems on. Let's start by looking at the homework, which is, okay, so just a reminder, these are your homework problems that are assigned. Before we get started, here are 2 important things to remember. First of all, when you are constructing an interval, when you're given a note and you're told construct the interval above the note or construct it below the note, be very careful that you do not change the given note. Work with the accidental only on the note that you add in order to change the interval to the correct quality. Don't change the note you were given as a starting point. If the note doesn't have an accidental on it, imagine that there's already a natural written in, and be sure that you keep it a natural note. And of course, don't scribble out a flat or a sharp or another accidental. And when you're constructing an interval, my recommendation to you is that you start by writing the note head first so that you get an interval of the right size. You want to get the size first, and then think about whether you need an accidental in order to have an interval of the correct quality. So first do the size, then do the quality. And I'm going to keep this piano keyboard here in reserve so that we can look at it if we need to. Some of you may find that it's helpful to have a piano keyboard diagram in front of you, at least in the beginning when you do your homework. In the first set of problems, you're asked to write intervals above the given notes. And the first couple of notes that you have are a major sixth and a minor third. Notice how I've written the capital M for major and the lowercase m for minor. I think putting a line over the lowercase m makes it very clear that it's lowercase. If you don't use the line, at least make your capital M very tall and very pointy, and make your lowercase m much flatter, and maybe make it a cursive M with the 3 humps. Don't write something where I can't tell whether it's major or minor, or I'll simply mark you wrong. Okay, so we're going to start with a major sixth above D. We'll do the size first. So counting up from D, D, E, F, G, A, B. The 6th note is B. And now let's look at this. There's a perfect 5th from D to A and a major 2nd from A to B. That tells me that this is already a major 6th. A perfect 5th plus a major 2nd is a major 6th. I don't need an accidental. The second technique that I showed you in the previous video was that you could invert the interval. Don't think about the 6th from D up to B. Think about the 3rd from D down to B. This is a minor 3rd, it's a step and a half, and the inversion of a minor 3rd is a major 6th. Again, we see that it's a major 6th. And finally, if you know your key signatures well, you can build a major scale on D. That would be D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. So D major has a B in it, and again, that tells us that the interval is major. The second construction problem above the given note is a minor 3rd above E flat. So the first thing we do is we write the note head there. And I see that this is not a minor 3rd, this is a major 3rd, right? It's a whole step from E flat up to F. It's then a whole step from F up to G. So 2 whole steps makes this a major 3rd. Or we could think about key and we could say, well, E flat major has 3 flats in the key signature, and G is in the key of E flat major, therefore this is a major 3rd. So to make this major 3rd into a minor 3rd, we need to add a flat. There, now it's a minor 3rd. Writing intervals below the given note is always a little bit harder. One of the reasons I think that it's harder is that with the upper note given, you can't immediately use the major scale technique. We're more used to thinking of building things from the bottom up rather than from the top down. But let's look at these two problems. We'll start with making a major seventh below G. Okay, so we're going to go down 7 notes, G, F, E, D, C, B, A. The 7th note is A. Okay, so with an A, we know that we're getting a note of the right size. Now we want to look at this and say, is it a major 7th or not? Well, A to E is a perfect 5th, but E to G is a minor 3rd. And if we think of the key signature of A minor, no sharps or flats, the G is part of the A minor scale. Both of those things tell me that what I have here is actually a minor 7th. Now, don't make it a major 7th by putting a sharp on the G. Remember, you were given the G as the starting note, so you need to think as if this has a natural sign on it. The note that we have to add the accidental to is the note that we wrote ourselves, and that's the A. To take this minor 7th and make it bigger, we have to lower the bottom note. That's what's going to stretch it out and make it a bigger interval. So there's the A flat. The next interval asks us to write a major 3rd below F. Again, looking at this, I see that it's actually a minor 3rd, but I can't change the F. To make this minor 3rd into a major 3rd, I want to put a flat on the D. Exercise number 4 also asks you to do some interval construction problems, but now we're going to be doing diminished and augmented intervals. My suggestion is that for diminished intervals, you start by thinking about perfect or minor intervals and then make them smaller. For augmented intervals, think about making perfect or major intervals and then make them a half step bigger. We're still in bass clef, so this is a C sharp, and we want to write a diminished 5th. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get the size right by writing the G. The combination of notes B, F is the one that you have to be careful about. That's the only place where if you have both notes being natural, B and F, F or B, you're going to get a diminished 5th or an augmented 4th. C natural to G natural is a perfect 5th. When we put a sharp on the C, we're raising the bottom note, and that makes the interval smaller. So C sharp to G is a diminished 5th. If this were calling for a perfect 5th, we'd have to put the same accidental on both of those notes. Here's one where we have to write a diminished interval below the note. So this is an A. We're going to go down 7 notes, A, G, F, E, D, C, B. Let's look at that 7th with no accidentals in it and see what the quality is. Well, as I was saying before, B to F is a diminished 5th. So I'm going to use that perfect 5th plus a smaller interval technique. B to F sharp is a perfect 5th. F sharp to A is a minor 3rd. Therefore, this is a minor 7th from B to A. Okay, and if you don't believe me, you can invert it. It inverts into a major 2nd. You could also think about the B minor scale. It has 2 sharps in the key signature. So A is part of the B minor scale, and that gives us again, a minor 7th. So if this is a minor 7th, we need to make it smaller in order to make it diminished. And again, we can't change the A. The A was the note that was given to us, so we have to use an A natural. In order to take this minor seventh and squeeze it, making it smaller, that means raising the lower note, and that means putting a sharp on the B. But let's look at number 6 now. Number 6 has some problems in interval identification. So let's start by getting the size correct. F, G, A, B, that's a fourth. Ordinarily, if the two notes were natural, we would have a perfect fourth. But again, look at the two specific notes that we have, F and B. That's the one place with natural notes that we get a tritone, 3 whole steps in a row. That makes this an augmented fourth. This is a sixth. Thinking of the perfect fifth above A, it would be E. AE is a perfect fifth. The second from E to F is a minor second, just a half step. This is a very small sixth. It's only a half step bigger than a perfect fifth. That makes this a minor sixth. The last interval is a third. With the sharp on the D, I can pretty much guess that this is either going to be major or it's going to be augmented. When you have a sharp on the higher note or a flat on the lower note, that means that it's a big interval, not a minor third, not a diminished third. Let's just take a look at this and look at the number of whole steps and half steps. From B to C sharp is a whole step. C sharp to D sharp is another whole step. This interval consists of 2 whole steps. We could also think of it as being an interval from the key of B major. Therefore, it's a major third. The problems from exercise 7, 8, 9, and 10 need a little bit of explanation. So do pay a good bit of attention. Exercise 7 asks us to identify the interval that we have and then give an enharmonically equivalent interval. And to do that, we're going to rewrite the note that has an accidental on it. So this is a black key, and we're going to think of it instead as being the same black key on the keyboard, but with a different name. Let's go back and just take a look at that keyboard that I drew for you. The interval goes from F sharp, this black key, up to C. Perhaps you can see that it's a diminished fifth because F to C is a perfect fifth. This is a little smaller. But this same black key could also be thought of as some kind of a G, a lower G, a G that had been lowered by a half step. So I'm going to rewrite the note as a G. These two intervals sound the same, even though we're going to be giving them 2 different labels, and even though they look different on the staff. This is a diminished fifth. Because this interval spans 4 letter names, G, A, B, C, it is a fourth, and it's a fourth that's bigger than a perfect fourth. Therefore, it is an augmented fourth, or a tritone. Exercise 8 gives you a compound interval, and it asks you to identify the compound interval, and then next to it, identify the simple interval, which is an octave smaller. So it will be helpful to not only think of the interval from E to G sharp, but to also think about the interval from E to this G sharp. This interval is a third. It's a major third. When you take a major third and you add an octave to it, an octave plus a third unfortunately, is a 10th, not an 11th. Okay, and again, if you don't believe me, you can actually count this out. E would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. G sharp is the 10th note if we count starting 1 on the E. The simple interval and the compound interval will have the same quality because this is a major third, this is a major 10th. You may find that it's easier to put one of these identifiers above the line and the other below the line, whatever allows you to do it neatly in a fashion that I can read it. Exercise 9 is an exercise in interval inversion. The first thing we want to do is identify this interval. Okay, we're still in treble clef. This is a third, and it's a major third. Now, to invert the interval, we either have to move the lower note up an octave or the upper note down an octave. But basically, instead of having an F below an A, we want to have an F above the A. And I'm going to do it so I don't have to write any ledger lines. Okay, so there's the A, and here's the F. Remember that thirds invert into sixths, and major intervals invert into minor intervals. That's a minor sixth. In fact, it's the same interval that we had up here, if you can kind of remember things just a little bit. It's easy to skip over exercise 10 if you're not paying attention, but notice that exercise 10 is here and it's giving you some instructions. So I'm just going to highlight this for you. Okay, so what this says is to refer back to exercises 6A and B. Those are where you have some harmonic intervals that you need to identify. Under each of the intervals in these exercises, write a C for consonant or a D for dissonant, depending on whether the interval is consonant or dissonant. So remember that the consonant intervals are the perfect intervals except for the perfect fourth, which isn't always consonant. Also, the thirds and the sixths are consonant. The other intervals, the seconds, the sevenths, all of the augmented and diminished intervals, those are dissonant intervals. Okay, so let's go back to number 6. The augmented fourth is augmented, therefore it is dissonant. Any augmented or diminished interval would be dissonant. The sixth and the third that we have here are both imperfect consonances, so I'll write consonants underneath them. And I'm not going to do the problems that I assigned from exercise 11. Remember that for exercise 11, you only have to look at example A.14a and A.14b. You don't have to do the last example. But I hope that you don't have too bad a time doing the homework. If you understand it, it may seem a little tedious, and I'm sorry about that. But again, if you find that the music theory is easy and you're not struggling with it, talk to your classmates. Maybe you can find somebody in this class or in another section of Music Theory 111 who is having a little bit more trouble. Maybe you can help them out and explain how to do the homework. Work with them on a few problems. Be sure that you don't give away all the answers. I want everybody to turn in their own homework. If you find that this homework is difficult or there are things that you don't understand, you can try watching the videos again. You can also see me in an office hour or send me an email to set up a different time to meet with me outside of my regularly scheduled office hours.